Hi everyone, my name's Caden. I spoke here about a year ago about knowledge graphs and RAG. It's a little bit more in the weeds. We're going to go a little bit more high level today with some business lessons and engineering lessons learned from putting more enterprise systems together. I guess I'll touch on my quantum background too, because it was in introductions. So my background, I came to Ohio to go to Case Western. I played football and studied physics there. I did engineering and physics in undergrad, so electrical engineering and physics. My background's in quantum computing. I did quantum optics research with Argo National Lab and Case for a few years. I was there, I got right time, right place, and started studying LLMs in 2020, late 2021, early 2022, before the viral ChatGPT moments. It's a great time to start learning AI. So then I started to pivot into AI systems, got a master's at Case in entrepreneurial physics. I've still continued my work with the Quantum Coalition, a nonprofit for quantum computing education, workforce development. So if you want to nerd out with quantum after this, I'm game, but that's enough quantum. Today is about AI. So today I'll be talking about some lessons learned from building enterprise AI systems. Most of my knowledge on this, of course, it comes from the physicist in me reading papers and keeping up with the news, but also hands-on data at Moreland Connect. We're a consulting firm based in Twinsburg, and I've shipped at least 50 AI projects this year. Things are moving quick, and a lot of that is where this information is coming from. So my first question, which I'd like to pose to the crowd, is why was code the first killer app for AI? I'll give you based on language. Yeah, language is a lot of training data, some answers.
The real reason is because code starts in the sovereign territory under the jurisdiction of the public.
Possibly an answer? Oh,
difficult.
GitHub. So GitHub, that's close. So I think we're kind of circling around it, but I would say context. You can make an argument for testability. You know, it's compilable, it's easy to test, put it on a loop. It's for sure an argument to be made there. What I'm going to focus on right now is context. Matter of fact, the RAG systems and knowledge graphs I was talking about last year, they really rolled up into this new buzzword, context management or context engineering, or probably there's 10 more buzzwords by the time I finish this talk, but context is what's key here. The other thing that's been really interesting is, I don't touch on it too deep in here, so I'll go on it now, but code. Anthropic actually released a paper that was interesting, saying code is all you need, play off of the attention all you need paper from the LLMs coming out, but they're actually using like Claude Code to operate on a lot of different business use cases. And the reason is you're able to put the context in one place. So Cursor is a platform that I'm sure many of us have heard of. It's one of the fastest growing ARR companies ever. What they did is literally took the Visual Studio code, forked it, added in LLMs, made it really cohesive, and you were able to index and get all of your code into the context of the models so that they're able to help you. So now, what I want to compare, zoom out for the sake of this screen, that's good. So I want to draw some comparisons between where software engineering and software is with current knowledge work and some of the trends that Ben was pointing out in the last presentation. Now, this is the Gartner hype cycle. So how the hype cycle works is there's a few phases, and the first is an innovation trigger. So some new type of technology comes out, ChatGPT has this sparking moment, everyone hears a ChatGPT, what are we gonna do? That seems so cool. Then there's peak expectations. All of a sudden, everyone's building a ChatGPT wrapper, everyone's throwing money into it, we gotta figure out how to capitalize on this, expectations are sky high, news is coming out, everyone's talking about AI or this bubble or whatever the technology is, and then all of a sudden the money starts to come in, but the ROI is not there. And then investors and many others are disappointed. So that's when we get the trough of disillusionment. So that is actually where I would say knowledge work is now, and that's where software engineering was in 2023. So then next is the slope of enlightenment. So this is when we start to actually continue to build and realize there is gains to be made here. Now these inflated expectations are not on our technology. We can actually see it for what it's worth and continue to get value out of it. Then you start to go up into the plateau of productivity. Now this is where we pretty well understand the technology, are getting pretty good use cases out of it. I may caveat the pretty well understand depending on the technology, but we're getting pretty solid ROI out of it, and it's pretty accessible across the industry. So now, according to Dario Amodei, at least from the Anthropic article that Ben showed in the last slide, I would say we could argue that software is even into this plateau of productivity now at this point. It's just crushing software man hours of like Amazon's coming out with all these Fortune 500 companies, tailwind, saying, listen, we are getting these gains. So I'd absolutely make the argument software engineering is even higher than it is. But knowledge work, we still are stuck in what we kind of said, they've been calling it in Moreland is the snippet phase. So to compare a little bit more, what is this gap? Thinking back to software engineering in 2022, early 2023, everyone's pasting snippets of code into ChatGPT or your LLM of choice, maybe Anthropic if you're with the times early. But manually providing this context, the results definitely vary wildly based on prompt engineering. Another thing we see with prompt engineering, if you actually study it, is it's just repeating patterns of the original things we were trying to do with these tight context windows. Then we got more and more tools, but the same techniques are being used over and over again, and seeing these patterns really helps you continually get unlocks. So now, the agentic phase, the cursor unlock, and now the Claude codes or codexes, you're getting full context of the code base, and you're able to really do some heavy lifting with your AI. So knowledge work is trapped in this snippet phase where we just have so much disconnected data. There's an SOP in Drive, there's a SharePoint document, I have these Outlook emails, someone's using Teams chat, I have no idea where my information is, I didn't even check Slack today, so what could be there, what could be new? So now, how do we pull all of that in? That's what knowledge workers are doing right now. We're really acting as the glue, pulling these things together, likely living on a spreadsheet document, or who knows what else. So really, knowledge work is messy, and looking at like a manufacturing company or an insurance company, companies we serve here in Cleveland, we realize that data are 10 times more fragmented than any code base. It's probably an understatement. So the solution, now, I'll talk generally, but kind of about what have we seen at Moreland Connect. So we have a platform that we call Foundation. So this is a diagram of the product, the platform that we're using at Moreland. Basically, our solution to this, as well as the general solution to this, we've kind of looked deeply at Palantir. Right now, one of the most valuable companies in the world, especially on ratio of earnings to what they're trading at, is Palantir, bar none. What are they doing? What are they doing? They're not just a defense company. What actually are they doing? Well, they're providing a platform very similar to this one because we studied it. And essentially, I would argue you could chop it up into three categories: data, AI use, and implementation. Now, those are three big categories. There's a lot that underlies in them. But for data, what we like to say is connecting to your systems. Now, Palantir would call it systems of action. There's so many other buzzwords out there you could call them. But your ERP systems, your CRM platforms, documents, structured, unstructured, different databases. I mean, the list could go on. But wherever your data is. Now, what we've created is a data pipeline. So we've made an in-house one. We've stitched together different open source platforms and tooling that we've kind of learned. Most of what our product is dealing with, there was a moment we had last year, maybe early Q2, we kind of had our top or developers and business units kind of spread out, and we're talking to different clients in different industries, and everyone's asking for the same thing. We're literally actually had this aha moment in one of our conference rooms where me and 3 of our other architects were building like the same thing. We're like, we are 6 lines of code from what we're building together. We should really think about this and how we can kind of unify it. And so now, that led to us releasing this product in October. We officially launched, and there's been a lot of interest in it. But really what I believe that is what we've shown to market is we take things from a chat to a workflow to an automation is kind of the story I like to tell. Now chat, everyone's pretty familiar with chat. I feel pretty confident that everyone in the room's probably used ChatGPT before. You can at least imagine what that would be like. So the first thing that we do, and I recommend your solution to do if you're trying to address this problem yourself, is find a way to connect whatever data you want and get it into the chat. And now this sounds familiar. This is what RAG, knowledge graphs were doing, and different models of doing that. But now we've wrapped this into a much bigger data platform. We have a data lakehouse, we have an ELT pipeline, we have a reverse ELT pipeline, but buzzwords aside, we take all your data, put it in one place, organize it so it's AI ready. We like to refer that to, it's like the semantic layer of this layer of actionable data. There's a lot of different buzzwords out there. People are calling it context graphs or canonical data. One of the reasons canonical data is important is canonical means essentially, you could boil it down to having the right standardization in time, because we don't actually want these cyclical cycles on our databases, because these AI agents, there's so much I guess randomness is a reasonable word to use here. And when you want to audit it and observe it, you really do need to know what was the whole system like at that moment? What were the inputs? What were the tools that was called? What is it fully interacting with? So that's why having a pretty built out data layer is important. So I might have time to demo it. But what we like to do is go from chat, where we actually add in artifacts similar to how like Claude's pretty good with artifacts and these canvases, but built in like a section of your ERP. Then once we start to find a few different steps you like to do, we can start to automate it into a workflow. And now you have a repeatable process. And then once we get there, we do like human in the loop testing. We sit with the business user and make sure the test case is valid. And then we can automate it or turn it into an API, call it on a schedule, call it anything like that. The validation for this is all over the place. Just grab, these are 3 of the most recent articles we were talking about in one of our internal channels. Anthropic and Snowflake just put a $200 million partnership into addressing this exact problem. Matter of fact, they released a Twitter post 4 hours ago about a platform addressing a problem similar. Palantir is seeing incredible growth, really focusing on, they're calling them like boot camps. So they're really trying to get fast value out. I guess another thing that we've learned, mentioned on this last graph, is our forward deploy engineer. You may have picked up that word. Palantir has really popularized that model. The key with a forward deployed engineer is there's a lot of AI pilots. Many of us have probably seen these AI pilots, and maybe we haven't seen any ROI from these pilots. Now, the point of a forward deployed engineer, it's kind of a fancy word to say consultant. As consultant, it's very similar. But we stay with the business holders or business users, and we want to make sure that value is created afterwards. It's definitely challenging to get a new system as an employee, and you just want to go use an old habit or something, and it's not tracked, and then those things are missed. They're very easy to. So continuing to push through workflows or products after they're deployed can give you much, much higher value. Also, Foundation Capital, in relation to our foundation, but they just had a large article about a $1 trillion opportunity being context graphs. And so they talked about the missing layer of implementation being this canonical data. So I have a few minutes left. I think I'll come back to this key takeaways, and I'll try to fit in a quick demo here. I have some appendixes on more in the weeds data, but I think we've talked about data platforms enough. I won't bore you with more about that. I have enough time to show off a quick example of what is a workflow, what am I talking about. So I'll give that a go here. So here's an example of our foundation platform. Now, this looks just like a ChatGPT, LLM type of thing. You have your different menus and such. Now, this is kind of the area where we start to get value with users. I'm going to ask, so this is a demo where this is hooked up to like an example pipeline, but I more so want to actually take it through a lesson that I learned working with these enterprise customers. So for me, I'm a developer. I can look at the slides of the data and the tools, and I can start piecing together in my head, how can I take these tools, how can I chain these tools together, and I can start seeing value. Most of the people that I'm trying to help provide value to, it's not as clear until we actually put it into a tangible result, or we do something like this. So this was, actually grab my follow-up question too. So this example right here is we were working with an property insurance vendor. This is all example data in our demo work. But what you can see is this is an example of one of those artifacts. It's like a widget in chat, and this is literally a screen basically pulled out of their ERP. So now I'm in my chat platform talking to ChatGPT, and I can get my whole dashboard overview for what's going on with my vendors. So in this scenario, not only can I actually interact with it, but I can even ask chat to only show me the en route and checked in orders, or not checked in orders, as those are the ones we're concerned about. So now we can see this is filtered to our en route versus our not checked in orders. So these is what I would call tools. So we have these tools coming up, and you can also ask about them. So assign the vendors who are not checked in. So you can also add a tool like this. So say reassign vendor appointment. So now what we have, this is actually a good example of having like a human in the loop. So this right here, we found our 2 vendors. They're not checked in, and we're going to want to reassign those. So while I'm still in the chat here, I can actually just go right here and confirm reassignment. And so now they've been successfully reassigned. I could also just automate it to assign that, but here I'm able to actually live audit and check what's going on while I'm in the loop. So now message them about this reassignment. So you may be able to tell from my typing, I also am a Whisper Flow user, so that helps. So here, I will ask to send a message. So this is another use case where here's an email draft, a text message draft, and a phone call. I can send these out, I can edit them, and okay, cool. We just use some basic data tools in the chat. Now, I'm gonna pull my notes out because this one's easier to do when I get it right. So now what I'm gonna do, here's a little example of prompt engineering. I'm gonna put a prompt together that is a little bit more specific. I'm gonna try to do all 4 things that we just did in 4 prompts in 1 prompt. Show me today's appointments overview, then filter display only the appointments with status en route or not checked in, reassign all the non-checked in orders, and send a notification. That's 1 prompt. So now we see our tool is called for our vendor appointment overview. Now here's our vendor appointment overview sorted with en route not checked in orders. Now we have our reassigned vendors, and now we have our messages. Okay, cool, I got a nice prompt. But now, this is some of the fun of a workflow builder. I can go in here, I can pick this prompt, and I can say generate a workflow. So now our system will automatically check, and there's other systems that do this as well. We have here system instructions on, okay, this is what you just tried to do. You can define your input and output schema, but you don't have to mess with any code. But right here, it auto-detected what tools in the system did you just use, and how can we string those together. So I've already created this full workflow. So I can open up a new chat, and now to do the same thing, I can say appointment manager full workflow, go, and now it will know, okay, these are all the tools that I need to do this full task. It's going to string all of them together, and I don't have to be in the loop for this. I've already approved it. So now, done, just sent the message to C. Taylor and K. Patel. This was what we were trying to do. Now I want to check in. I can still overview any of these messages. And then, so that was an example of the chat to workflow automation. Now there's actually some really cool open source tools that do things similar to this. One of our goals is we want to kind of combine Versal's workflow builder is really cool. I don't have time to demo it right now, but you can use text and say, build me a workflow to send email automation, and it'll just build it in front of you in kind of it looks like a Zapier, like make.com, and they put the nodes in, but then you can even pull the code out. So we're working on an interface similar to that, and what we also want to do is that UI interface, that artifact or widget that we use, we want to get the user to be able to essentially vibe code those on Rails. So kind of like a Replit-like experience built into the platform. As the engineer working on that, obviously I'm excited about it. We're kind of continuing to validate that use case. But some takeaways overall here, regardless of if you're working on this platform or you care about it, but I would recommend to you as you become the best AI-enabled version of yourself and close that gap that Ben was talking about. Context is the bottleneck, not the model. Also, I mean, talk about one of the biggest things that we were wrong about from early AI is that GPT wrappers do not provide value. Matter of fact, that is the value. Building the models is just burning money, and all these big players have the money to do that. But building the infrastructure around the models and actually getting your data safely, securely, audibly, and consistently into those models, that's the value. And actually the difficulty of doing that is the moat. It takes some data science and it takes some understanding. So those are definitely skills to invest in and learn. And yeah, this documenting, document the real how, that would be for like the business sense. So whatever task you're trying to automate, it actually helps think out loud, how do we do it? I mean, we've talked to so many business owners, and manufacturing is an easy one. It's like, we walk in there, there's this guy who's about to retire, his name's Joe, and Joe does the scheduling. We're like, all right, Joe, how does point A get to point B? And he's like, it just does. And Joe has 65 years of knowledge on how that company works. Trying to automate it without Joe is a nightmare. So just write down the if-then statements, how you get there, and sometimes it's never been written out before, but that is really important data. So yeah, connect with me on LinkedIn, email me or grab me after for demo or more information. Follow me on YouTube. I actually announced my YouTube channel last year when I was here, and I set out to post videos. I posted one video. I have 2 queued right now. One will be a foundation demo. I recorded it today without the audio, so that was a delay. I wanted it out, but computers get me too. And then I actually, on the Gaussian splatting question, I have an AI game developing video. Quick blurb on that. I took LeBron James, made a Gaussian splat of him, meshed him up, and then put him in a video game I vibe coded because we were going to speak at a career fair, and enterprise software is boring to high schoolers. But turns out the video seems pretty interesting. So hopefully by the end of the week I get that one up too. That would be worth the watch. Short on time for
We got
questions.
time for two quick questions, and no, you were holding over.
So,
Okay,
Andrew first.
so I'm going to go back to the example Ben gave, buggy web makers. Joe knows what the company was doing, but in this brave new world, maybe you're helping their company become the most efficient and best buggy web maker around, but it's no longer relevant in this brave new world.
Mhm.
And that's part of the issue, is people are still thinking about, how do I build the enterprise systems around these tools? Their enterprise may be roadkill.
Yeah, that's a good question. A lot of ways to respond to that. A few things. Most of the Joes I've talked to want to retire, and they're kind of stuck there. So you say go for it. So, I mean, the Great Tsunami is an issue we're dealing with. Just like the Industrial Revolution, there was displacement, but more wealth, more creation normally leads to more jobs. My job didn't exist before AI, so there's one.
One more question.
One of your slides where you were showing the workflow, you had a little note on the side which said putting the AI in the security guardrails. So when you have all this type of data being fed to your workflow, I mean, you might have sensitive data too. How are you securing that data? How are you making sure that data is under the right guardrails?
That's a great question. The question deserves its own 15-minute talk as well. The way I like to explain it is security isn't necessary, and caveat on this, but let's just say as a blanket statement because I have to put one out there. I think of security and governance for the most part not as a question or a problem that needs to be solved, but a price tag on the system, because however more secure you need it is the more money it's going to take us to get there. Now, one of our major client is in the hospital system. We follow full HIPAA compliance, and there's an end of this, what I would say, a spectrum of you're only running local models, you're not even allowing PII to get on there, you run every test rail and suite you have. Then there's some people who are just going to take an API key from OpenAI and shove whatever they want in there at their own risk, and there's definitely a spectrum. I mean, we kind of enterprise security, most people just feel okay with putting in Copilot. Again, there's a long list of those things, and observability is important, but okay, one example I will, just to go in a little bit further, is say I'm worried about PII. I could probably take a pretty good guess based on what the workflow and use case and company is on what type of information is going to be going up there. Things like social security numbers or phone numbers, they follow pretty good patterns, and things have existed in the past to stop those from going into systems. So you can just kind of use simple regex sometimes to catch them, or you could go as far as having an on-prem, essentially edge AI compute if you want, before you catch it to an open API to catch it for PII, or you could put a person in the loop. Depends on how important that is as opposed to latency and cost, but hope that helps. Thank you.